Okay, time for a new video, and whether you are somebody new to my channel or you are returning to my channel to watch this video, it is greatly appreciated. As always, I'm filming this video in one go, so if I stumble over my words moving forwards, apologies about that, and also apologies if the quality of this video is fairly poor as well. If there's any lag, anything like that at all, sadly it can't be helped, and hopefully it's not too much of an issue for you. This is yet another Eurovision 2024 related video here on my channel, and another Why Blank should win Eurovision 2024 video. Recently, I spoke about Nemo and the code for Switzerland and why they should strongly push for victory in Malmö in Sweden next month. And today I'm talking about Norway. And very soon I'll be filming a third and final part in this little series focusing on another country and why they should perhaps challenge hard for the win next month as well. I want to reiterate a point I made previously, which is that this is not a prediction video. This is not me saying Norway are going to win and here's why. This is me sitting here saying to you Norway should perhaps challenge for the win next month, and these are the reasons as to why I believe that. As always, you're welcome to let me know your thoughts on anything I discussed today by leaving a comment down below, and as always there are links in the description to my other social media pages, check them out if you so wish. I have tried filming this video so many times now it is ludicrous, so I'm going to really try and take my time with this one and hopefully not ramble for the ages. Norway are in semi-final 2 this year, so we'll be hearing this song, Ulveham, in the second half of that second semi-final on the Thursday evening next month. Gåta means riddle, and Ulveham roughly translates as wolf skin. First things first, one of the reasons why I believe Norway should challenge hard for the win this year is because it is already set for Eurovision. You know this is not going to be a big fat disappointment because we've already seen a couple of performances of this track. Think back a few months to MGP. It was all about My AI, Dam Diggy Da, even Green Lights, Oblivion. Those songs, at least to me, seemed to be getting a little bit more attention at first. But then Gåta took to the stage with this song and it blew people away. And some individuals on social media and what have you started saying, wow, winner vibes from this one. And then we had the performance in the final, by which point Gåta were the act to beat all of a sudden. And they won, albeit not by a massively comfortable margin, but Ulveham was the song that came out on top. And it was another stellar performance. But this was before we had many songs confirmed for this year's lineup. And over the past few weeks, over the past few months, perhaps Norway has slipped a little bit in people's estimations, to the point where now Norway is not a strong favourite for the win. It's an outside bet. Now, I've always felt that this is a serious contender, and I'll tell you why. Because it's ready-made for Eurovision. At MGP, watching the performance, it felt like it was Gåta's concert for 3 minutes. It didn't really feel like there were many other participants at all. It felt so polished and professional, and to be honest, you would expect that from a band who've been making music since the turn of the century. They've performed all over the place, they know what they're doing. Eurovision is just a slightly bigger stage for them, in all honesty, and I think next month we are going to get more of the same. A very professionally executed performance of this song once again, vocally strong. It is an epic style of track. Next month I would really ramp up that epic nature even further. I think a lot of people tune into Eurovision because, and I said this in the Swiss related video recently too, I think a lot of people tune into the final to see something like this, to hear something like this. Music that is so far removed from what they perhaps listen to in their own time. Not a lot of people probably decide to go onto Spotify and check out some sort of Norwegian folk metal playlist. That probably doesn't happen. But people tuning in for the final this year, they're going to get a whole bunch of different sounds. Europapa, Jako for Armenia, Marina Sati's entry for Greece. We're going to get the Croatian track, the Italian track, so many different sounds and flavours. And a lot of them perhaps really different from what regular folk listen to in their own time. I don't know. This Norwegian track, I think people as well they'll give more stuff a chance when it comes to Eurovision. So even if you're not really much of a metal or folk fan or anything like that, if you're watching Eurovision, you're sort of game for anything. And this Norwegian track stands out an absolute mile. It really, really does. Because it feels so grand and epic and dramatic and gothic and spooky and mystical and elemental and any other word that you want to use here, it's all good. What is really impressive about this track, apart from the sublime vocals as well from the lead singer, is how this doesn't feel fake or uninspired necessarily, or really not related to the country it's for in any way. This feels very Norwegian, I guess. It is based on a Norwegian ballad, an old Norwegian medieval ballad. It says here, Gorta made a modern interpretation of a Norwegian medieval ballad known as Moira i Ulvehamn, the Maid in Wolf Pelt. The initial lyrical content draws from a mid-19th century manuscript from Telemark. Several stanzas were identical to those found in the original manuscript. In Ulvehamn, the stanzas were reconstructed and their language simplified, moving closer to the standardized High Norwegian or Nynorsk. I mean, this song sounds like it could be in Game of Thrones or something. Certainly the lyrical content is grim enough to be in an episode of Game of Thrones. Moira i Ulvehamn tells the story of a young maiden who is transformed into a needle, a knife, and then a sword by her evil stepmother. That sentence alone has me intrigued. If people are willing to look up the meaning of a song, the English translation of the lyrics, that means that going into Eurovision, they might already have some sort of connection with the track because they know what the track is on about. They know what the lyrics are regarding. And because this is such a story, maybe some people will feel compelled to vote for this because of that. I don't know, it's entirely possible. However, the people continue to appreciate her throughout all of her transformations, angering her stepmother. Therefore, to punish her even further, the stepmother transforms her into a wolf. It ends with the stepmother, pregnant with a child, being pounced on by the wolf. To lift the curse, the wolf drinks her stepmother's blood, which contains the blood of her unborn half-brother. Ulvehamn opens with a traditional kulok. There's no other song this year that really has that, so that's a plus. Originality, something fresh, something that you don't always hear in contemporary music, that's for sure. These are all good things. It's helping the song stand out. It has such an identity, and that identity, it flows through the entirety of this track, if you see what I mean. It doesn't let up and slip into something else at any moment. This is pure tradition from start to finish, and that can be really appreciated by a voting audience, and indeed jury members. We'll talk more about the jury in a minute, particularly with regards to the vocals. But yes, it opens with this traditional kulok, a herding call traditionally used to summon livestock. So maybe, if this goes well in Malmö next month, a couple of goats and lambs and God knows what else, they'll be flying onto the stage as well because the lead singer has done this note. Sourced from an early 20th century recording featuring a folk singer. The musical composition incorporates electronic beats and various instruments, so whilst this does sound old school, traditional, very Norwegian I suppose in a sense, we do have these modern elements. It's not completely alienating, because electronic beats in music, that's fairly common. So there is something accessible. There is something for people to grip onto. So even if it feels like it might not totally be your cup of tea, there may be elements of this song sonically that actually you can really enjoy. And various instruments such as nyckelharpa, well, not many songs have one of those involved, electric guitars and drums. It uses metal growling with lyrics as background vocalization. Now this growling business, if you are a music professional, music journalist, whatever you want to be, and you are voting for a country this year as part of your nation's jury, you might really not like this style of singing, but that doesn't mean that you should just mark it down. If you ask me, the way that the lead singer Gunhild here does the whole growling business and what have you, and hits those really high notes, that takes some doing. That's very impressive. So, okay, maybe you don't give Norway a point yourself. Fair enough. But this isn't the sort of song that you can listen to and just dismiss because it sounds noisy or too aggressive. Do you see what I mean? And if a lot of jury members are on board with this and can appreciate those elements of this track, point there, 2 points here, 3 points there, they all start to add up, And before you know it, Norway has finished in a cushy place with the jury in the final. As for the public, I think the public will enjoy this. I can't imagine that they won't, to be honest. Yes, we have a lot of very expressive tracks this year. But there'll be a lot of people tuning into Eurovision, and this song will be so far up their street. It may end up being the only song they actually really enjoy from this year's lineup. Which means that if they want to vote, they'll probably be voting for this one. And before you know it, couple of points there, couple of points there, they all add up. Realistically, this song, I think, should comfortably be finishing in the top 10 this year. Absolutely. And I mentioned Switzerland. I'm really rambling big time now, and I'm not really making too much sense, but bear with me. I mentioned Switzerland previously. This is a country that for years were pretty crap, but they turned a corner. Now we are used to seeing Switzerland qualify. We are used to seeing Switzerland send something half decent. We've had Luca Hani, top 5, John's Tears, top 3, and we've had some other quality entries along the way as well. This year, the Code is a potential winner. So to go from struggling for so long to what we now have from Switzerland, that's turning a corner. That is a success story. And winning will be the cherry on the very nice tasting cake. It happened with the Netherlands, of course. Years in the wilderness, along came Anouk top 10, Common Limits top 3, couple of other okay results in there, and then Duncan Lawrence won. And it felt like such a wonderful redemption story after years of not really doing much at all. And if those countries can do it, I've mentioned this previously, Georgia, Latvia, countries like that, they can turn it around as well. For Norway, years ago, if anybody mentioned Norway at Eurovision, it was, oh yeah, the country that usually finishes last, the country that gets 0 points. This is a country that now is one of the strongest countries in the entire competition. More often than not, we are used to Norway doing really well and sending pretty decent songs. If we take a look at their form over the past decade, Silent Storm, top 10. A Monster Like Me, top 10. Agneta admittedly didn't qualify, but the following year, Grab the Moment, top 10. Then we had Alexander Rybak in 2018. Okay, he finished mid-table in the final in Lisbon, but he won the second semi-final. That's not half bad. Kano, the public favourite overall in 2019. Ulrika absolutely would have challenged for the win if you ask me. Then we had Tix. Okay, his result wasn't the most impressive, but it was still in the final. Then we had Subwoofer. Well, that song and that performance received a lot of attention. I think it finished 10th or 11th, which isn't half bad. And then last year, Alessandro was 3rd with the public and top 5 overall. We are used to seeing Norway do really well, and this year is no exception. And it really feels to me as though Norway are gearing up for that 4th Eurovision victory. And when Norway win, they win pretty big. Bobby Sox winning in the mid-80s was a big deal because it was the first time Norway had won, and there was this sense of relief that finally, after all these entries in the past that haven't fared well, we have come out on top. Secret Garden, people still love that song decades later. What a fabulous, fabulous entry. And then, of course, Fairy Tale was the biggest winner ever at the time in 2009. So when Norway win, they win big. And this is a big, epic song. It could do it. Maybe. Of course, there's lots of other factors. The fact that we do have so many strong entries this year, so many competitive entries this year, it's a very open field. And also, some people just might not really gravitate with this whatsoever. The running order position might be poor as well. Who knows? But Vocally, this is really, really strong. It's doing something different. It's doing something different from everybody else this year. It is doing something different from what we get from most countries every year. We have traditional instrumentation mixed with a more modern sound, and I think it works together very nicely. That's very strong. The band have taken something that already exists and brought it into the light, so that's a nice thing as well. People may feel compelled to find out more about Norwegian medieval ballads and folklore and things like that. It's in Norwegian. That's fantastic. And for 3 minutes, it feels like you're watching their concert. They are owning this performance. They are delivering the goods. If you're a music professional, you will also appreciate the vocal capabilities of the lead singer here, even if you are not really a fan of this type of music. You've got to be putting all of that stuff aside, really, and thinking as neutrally as possible. And I think this will not be completely dismissed in the jury vote. I'd be really disappointed if so. And in the public vote, I think you've got to be looking at a really healthy mark as well. I don't expect Norway to win, but I expect this to be up there doing pretty well for itself. Alessandra was third last year. Now, admittedly, that was with a bit more of a bog standard pop song. I'm not saying Gorta will do as well, but a lot of people will really love this. And there's not many other songs this year that feel so grand, that are telling so much of a story. Now, I don't want to criticise Sweden here, but look at that Swedish entry. There's nothing really intriguing about it, apart from perhaps the staging. Does it really feel true to Sweden as a country? Perhaps not. Do the artists themselves have a really strong connection with the lyrical content of their own song? Perhaps not. And then you look at Norway. It's about a Norwegian medieval ballad, for crying out loud. It couldn't be more history entwined if it tried. Fantastic. Fantastic. And it would be wonderful if more countries took something perhaps from their own history and brought it into the light for a new, young audience, showing that this type of stuff from the past is still relevant, that it's still intriguing, that it's still dramatic, and telling a story on stage for 3 minutes. This is what the Swiss song does, to some extent. You know, it tells a story. The Swiss entry is about Nemo finding their true selves, shedding all of this skin that they've had, and now here I am in all my glory. I am accepting of myself, and I hope you're accepting of me too. That's what the Swiss entry is about. This Norwegian song is telling a story as well. Absolutely. And in a way, the other countries that I'm going to be talking about, the next country I talk about in Why Blank Should Win Eurovision 2024, that song as well sort of tells a bit of a story too. A story that I think a lot of people can relate to as well. Now, what else does it say here? Not much. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say, but I don't think I've made much sense. Take a look at the English translation of this song. I was a very young girl. My mother would die in birth. My stepmother turned me to a grey wolf, then sent me to the king's court. She turned me into a little sword under the hill. She bid me go to the world of men, as the sun shone so far. My stepmother thought it best under the hill, that all the richest would use me best. In terms of the lyrical content, there's not really another song this year that has lyrics A, remotely like this, and B, that are telling a story quite like this. You know? I just think it's really, really fascinating and really, really well done. And I think it's going to blow people away. I really do. I can't even remember if I've touched upon this, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but I spoke in a previous video about how I would stage this. And I always think it's fairly important to take what you've already got and enhance it just a touch for Eurovision itself. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. but do take what you've got and just make a few little adjustments here and there. Nothing major, because certainly in this instance, nothing major needs to be altered at all, if you ask me. I'd have the band on stage, obviously. I'd keep it very dark. I would make full use of the flashing lights as the song progresses. And then, at the end, when things become a bit more frantic, and it's almost like this massive sense of anguish and dismay, almost. That's what it feels like. During that final part, I'd have the backdrop lit up, maybe with an image of water, and using virtual reality or AI or whatever else you want to call it, I would have the camera pan out, and it's almost as if the water is cascading over the stage, over the band, over the audience, because it feels like the dam has burst. That could be a really powerful moment, because that's taking sort of what you already had at MGP and enhancing it, because you're now on a bigger stage and a much bigger audience are watching. And we had images in the MGP performance of water and trees and things like that. It's a very nature-based performance. I think that's really cool. That helps it stand out as well, because it's not just, you know, shots of the band for 3 minutes. We have these little moments that are interspersed throughout to make it truly unique amongst the field. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I don't think I have anything else to say about this. Long story short, I think Norway should challenge for the win, because the song is really good and really strong. Vocally, it's doing things that very few other songs this year are doing, and not only that, every time this song has been performed live, the vocals have been bang on the money, so we don't need to worry about that at Eurovision next month. When the rehearsal footage comes out, the semi-final itself, the grand final, it's going to be good. We don't need to be concerned. We know roughly what we're going to get in terms of the staging. The staging was working perfectly well before. It's going to work perfectly well again this time, and hopefully there will be those few adjustments that I just mentioned as well. Something along those lines. That would be really, really nice to see, and it would be a really powerful moment if they were to have that sort of water over the stage effect. It just popped into my head one day and I thought, wow, what a strong image that could be. That would be really, really fantastic. It feels epic, and epic sounding songs can definitely do well at Eurovision. This feels like it's from another world. Nocturne by Secret Garden felt like it was from another world, and look how well that song did, albeit years ago. And that was in Norwegian, was it not? How interesting. And that was quite dark as well, was it not? How interesting. And also, this is obviously a sort of metal folk type entry. It's a different genre, and every now and then a different genre of music can do really well at the contest. I mean, Italy came along in 2011 after years away and finished second. Okay, they didn't win, but they finished second with jazz, you know, out of the blue. And the sound of the Finnish track last year, you know, I think people really appreciated that different type of sound, something that you don't usually get at Eurovision, because a lot of people still assume Eurovision is just full of straightforward pop. But the Finnish entry came along and people were bowled over by it. And we've had other songs over the past few years as well. You know, Country for the Netherlands in 2014. Different sounds can really be appreciated. Being in a different language other than English can really be appreciated. A song with a story behind it can really be appreciated. With a strong performance and strong vocals, tick, 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 points, 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 winner, 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 chicken, chicken dinner. Do you see what I mean? Maybe I'm not really sounding very convincing here, but every time I hear this song, and I've watched the MGP performance back several times, and I believe we're getting an official music video for this song very soon as well, I've been very impressed, and I think to myself, how can this not challenge for the win? I think it should be right up there. I really do. I really do. If you have this in the final, and let's say that you've got something like Cyprus on before it, and then you've got, I don't know, Finland on afterwards, this is going to stand out like you wouldn't believe. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a complete change of pace. It's a complete different change of style and aesthetic, and there is an audience for this type of thing. And even if this is not your thing, you might still watch this and think, wow, that was quite impressive, wasn't it? And who knows, the votes may just pour in. I'm looking forward to seeing this live next month. It's my number 2 of the year. Let me know what you think about Norway. Should this challenge for the win? Can you see this doing very well? Do you think it will really struggle? Of course, that could happen, but I, for one, would be disappointed if this song finished about 16th in the final. For Norway to be, slipping in the odds ever so slightly, that's a shame. But I wouldn't be surprised if once the rehearsals begin, this starts moving up a few places. Because you know as well as I do, we are going to get something very, very strong from the band next month. We are not going to get something that feels like a crushing disappointment. We know roughly what it's going to look like. We obviously know what it's going to sound like. And that voice in a big arena, it could be a moment of magic. It really, really could. That final third, that is the selling point of the whole song. And if you take what you've got, twist it ever so slightly, enhance it a little bit as well, wow, that could be the moment that gets you a really good result, and maybe even helps you win the contest. I don't know. I feel as though I've repeated myself far too much here, and I feel as though there was a lot more I wanted to say. I just love how grand this is. It's a dramatic old tale brought into the light. There is an element of theatre to this, as there is with the Swiss track. It feels like a theatre production, it feels like a play when you listen to this song, listen to the lyrics, watch the music video. It feels like it could be a stage production. And this Norwegian track, yeah, it feels the same way, if I'm being completely honest. Anyway, next time I'll be talking about the last country in this little series. Feel free to guess which country that's going to be. Until next time, hopefully there wasn't any lag. Let me know your thoughts on this. And of course, be respectful of people's opinions in the comments. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and bye for now.